So basically today's session is to cover the switches that Ivory Egg do distribute here in Australia. We'll run through the range. So I'll go through the agenda, and it's just a bit of tricks as well and some tips on how to sell keypads more efficiently. So first, we'll give some tips on how to sell keypads and switches in general. And then we will, sorry, I'm trying to get control, give you a bit of the switch philosophy for KNX, at least what we believe is the switch philosophy. Also, no way's right or wrong. The tips we're giving are just ones that we've learned throughout time that are very helpful, especially from an integrator's point of view on how to speak to clients, designers, and consultants. We give you some ideas on some first questions to always ask your clients and also designers. Then we'll cover the keypad selection range. So we'll work our way from top down. So we'll work on the high range, then the medium range, and then the low range of keypads that we suggest and that we sell. The goal here is also that KNX is really overwhelming. Our biggest strength is our biggest weakness. There are a lot of options out there. It can be quite daunting. So we've tried to narrow down these selections for you that you still have an array of different options, but depending on budget and all of that will then dictate what the high, medium, and low range would be. And we've tried to simplify it for you. Then as well, we'll review our website and how it works in the switches by range section. And yeah, like I said, like Ed said, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll get back to you. And we've also got some follow-up material as well that will be helpful for all of you. Some of the ideas on how to sell switches. So we've included this, don't make assumptions. We find all of us, I mean, we're all a bit biased. We all have products that we like. I mean, when you meet someone, you kind of have an idea of, you know, what their background would be. The same kind of goes with homes. So the idea is not to make assumptions on what the environment would be, what the design of the home would be, and what keypads would suit that home. I do find a lot of integrators and people, including myself, I like obviously some keypads more than others, but I sometimes will sell a switch that I think is beautiful and the client won't like it, and vice versa. Other times I'll think a switch is atrocious, not that good looking, and the client will love it and like it for their style of their home. So it's really, really important to remember that you are not the client or the homeowner, and you need to kind of come in with the open basis to allow them to make their own decisions themselves. As well, trying not to pigeonhole your customer's choice. So this is a bit repetitive of the first two, but based on what you like, listen and let them do the deciding on the styles. I find a lot of integrators have a certain style and a certain keypad that they specifically like, and they try to make that decision for the client when that's actually the whole purpose of KNX is to embrace that there's so many different options and ideas out there. So just try to go in with an open mind. And then also really important, this is why we even designed the this presentation this way. Start at the top at the highest range and then work your way down. You'll be really surprised. Again, we make assumptions thinking about people's budgets and things. And obviously you can kind of gauge the customer and read the room, but still it's important to show them the nicest switch because the joy of KNX is that you can mix and match keypads in a job as well. So start with the highest range and then work your way down, because what happens is you'll undersell yourself if you just show them the cheaper keypads. Always show them the higher end ones. And then what happens is once you start showing them the cheaper keypads, they're like, oh, well, I want something that's similar, you know, to that higher end range. And they're always comparing to that higher range. And sometimes they do make exceptions on budgets if they really, really do want something that is better quality and higher end, because you do get what you pay for with these keypads. And then also really important to be prepared for your meeting. So it's really important to come in and have the tech knowledge and as well the samples. So always important to have physical samples there for the client to be able to touch and feel, especially with the keypads such as Basalte and Lithos, and actually being able to touch and feel the real metals is super important to be able to sell them. Us as Ivory Egg, we've got demo kits of every single one of these products that we're about to show you and run through. So if you don't have the samples, please reach out to us and we can ship them to you or deliver them to you by hand. We can even go and meet the clients or the homeowners or the architects and designers and physically show them if you don't have them. Yeah, it's really, really important to have them physically see them and even come prepared with the knowledge of kind of what the keypads can and can't do and the differences in functionality, which is exactly why we're recording this. So hopefully you can take note on all of this functionality per
And so
switch.
just on that point with having samples available, it's amazing even in my experience with integrators, how having the physical product there can make or break the sale. So to talk about, cost of a switch and functionality and everything else leaves questions in people's heads. But when they sometimes see a switch, they go, that's it. That's what I want to show clients, or that's what the client wants to ultimately get is what they have in their hand, what's tactile.
Thanks, Ed. That's a good point.
So I'll address this topic, which I think I may have taken this photo, no, I think I did take this photo at some point. But this was a client starting a new job, and what's very evident in that photo is just the number of keypads. Taking the whole big KNX conversation out the way, where obviously we can integrate with multiple aircon manufacturers and alarm systems if we so need to. But just looking at that huge button panel there. Part of the primary reason we do this is to get rid of the guesswork for the client and take away the wall acne, what really looks horrible on the wall. Um, and the homeowner should be in tune with, the home should be in tune with the customer. So a customer, shouldn't think of how to control their lights. It should be naturally intuitive when they go to the wall switch to know how to turn on and off. It shouldn't create that guesswork. This last topic, obsessing over granular control, was very topical even just this morning with a client. Originally, he specified Hager switches for the whole house. It's a fairly large and pretty high-end home, but he was comfortable with Hager switches. He's used it in his 240-volt work and going into KNX. He's pretty new with KNX. That was what he was going to go with. The client then said they want a rotary dimmer and came to me and asked what rotary dimmers. And I proposed a Lithos one, not knowing that there was even a budget in mind, but that is what is our preferred rotary dimmer, round knob on the wall. You'll see it later on. And that then started the conversation about using these, and that's ultimately what they're going to go for. But it takes away the granular control. And this client this morning was showing me on his control for touchscreen how he tries to stay clear of giving clients the button to turn each line on and off, and it's all just scene orientated. And that's often the message we like to relay. And even Basalte, in every one of their educations, it's all about scene control. Yeah, more and more light channels are being integrated into each room. You think about a bathroom where you've got down lights, the lights behind the mirror, under counter lights. There might be 5 or 6 loads in the bathroom. You're not going to give a guy 5 switch buttons to control each light and dim each light individually. So part of this whole switch discussion is how you can integrate scenes most seamlessly into the customer's house. So yeah, taking away that granular control and like I like that thought process. Don't mix the song, just listen to the music. Just press the button, have all the right lights turn on at the right time of the day, and vice versa. Tap the keypad, it turns all those lights off. Don't think of mixing the song and turning up the drums and turning down the guitar and the vocals separate to each element. Just enjoy having the scene turn naturally on and off. So going into questions, this often helps simplify the decision for yourselves as integrators and also for the end client. You really want to start at the obvious one. Are they accepting of a square or a Euro switch, or are they stuck in the framework of an Aussie-fied horizontal or vertical rectangular switch? Often it's a new build. The square is easy to adopt, but patching a rectangular hole sometimes is where it gets a bit sticky. The concept of cutting a round hole for ultimately what is a Euro backbox or Euro switch is a lot simpler. Once they start that process, once you guys start using hole saws to cut instead of using a handsaw, it makes it a lot simpler. And we've obviously got the back boxes and the proper equipment to even recess the lip of the back box from our Kaiser range. But this is probably where the questions need to start. A lot of the time, us as reps even propose the question, do they want a tactile, so an actual click push button, or they're happy with a capacitive touch. Capacitive touch is becoming very popular even from that scene control perspective, because it feels more natural to press and hold the capacitive touch button as opposed to pressing that button in for an extended period of time on a tactile switch. But it's also definitely a question worth asking. Plastic or metal finish. This can sometimes involve the budget of the project. Obviously, a plastic is less expensive than a metal finish. But again, when you put a metal keypad into a customer's hand and they feel either weight, that it's cold, it feels strange to say you want a cold keypad, but people think of that as a fresher approach when they touch a button and it's not just a plastic button, it's actually got texture and feel to it. So ask if they're happy with plastic or metal, or you make up the mind looking at the rest of the finishes in the house if plastic or metal be better suited. And then often one of the last questions is, do they care for a backlight or engraving? A lot of people swear against engraving. A lot of people insist on engraving. This on the right is a Zennio keypad, which naturally comes with just a border around the button, or you can choose to have it engraved. As soon as you start getting to 6-gang, it can become very confusing if you don't have any labels. So that is a question worth asking. This HDL keypad in the middle is somewhat just a placeholder. It's a very busy looking keypad, but it goes back to people who like the Clipsal or CBus EDLTs, where the information is in the middle and you have multiple pages you can go across. Again, it comes back to that granular control. Do you really need to control each light individually or multiple elements, or are you just going to set the scene? The last question is, or the last comment is, obviously these questions might not all be able to be answered, but you need to present the options that are available, and sometimes going about them methodically through each one of these questions helps present all those options.
Just a few more things in here, Ed. I just want to also take note that for this, it's always good to explain that majority of KNX keypads as well, not all of them, so don't take my word for it, but majority of them, I know we were asked about searching functionalities for the keypads. Majority, it's assumed, do have temperature inside the keypads, like a thermostat. There are a few, as like the cheaper ones, obviously the HDL mix and things like that won't, but that's an important sales tip to also give to the homeowners. And yeah, like Ed said as well, granular control. So the whole purpose of automating your home nowadays is that the home's so in tune with you, you shouldn't be having to control every single little element of your home within the keypad. Like, you shouldn't be having to control every single individual light. The goal is that everything's very scene-based, room on, room off, that sort of thing, which I think once you start talking to the clients and the homeowners, you try to make it simple and try not to over complex and sell it. Just say less controls. That's the purpose of apps. There's so much more functionality within the keypad they don't realize, such as thermostats, etc.
Good point, Sid. And also granular control of blinds. You know, how many times do you walk into a room and there's 3 or 4 blinds? You don't want a customer having to control each one of those blinds. It's a similar process to the lighting control. So going into good, better, best, everything in life is good, better, best. There's a wide enough range, but to suit any project. But this is where ultimately KNX can become expensive if you're not smart about how you position the 3 different levels. Equating it to cars, I love cars, so this makes sense to me. A good is a high quantity commercial cheap. It's cheap not in the sense of being flimsy, but less expensive, obviously, than the mid-range. There's nothing wrong with the VW Polo. It gets you from A to B. It's very practical for what it is, but essentially they produce a very high quantity of these over time to make the price less expensive. You wouldn't necessarily stand out. I'd probably put this in the plastic category, and it might become yellow with time. The better range, you do get better sort of commercial keypads, which provide status feedback, multicolor LED, all that in the mid-range commercial range. And obviously in the residential range, you really start to step into what is more advanced features, and like Sid says, getting temperature humidity sensor from the keypad, that is often in that mid-level, which we'll run you through each of the separate brands now, and you'll quickly distinguish what is mid-level. And then the best, that's the sports car, the supercar, that's has everything, full-blown thermostat logic, a really luxurious feel, hand finished, very limited in production. Even when you look at Basalt, their ability to hand manufacture all their keypads, it's really something to distinguish in the market. But like I said, this is where KNX can start to seem expensive. So sometimes, not all the time, people that are new to KNX say it's expensive, and it's really not. It's just that you have so many keypad options that you can quickly add up the cost in the keypads. But certainly the DIN rail gear can be fairly inexpensive.
Yeah, I think it's important from what Ed said to highlight that. People get really confused and think KNX is extremely expensive because what happens is they associate it with Basalt and those sort of ranges. It's really important to emphasize that actually it's kind of like with KNX, how long's a piece of string? Once you start adding on way, way more building control, obviously it's going to be more expensive compared to, a C-Bus and Dynalight when you're only controlling lighting. It can be as expensive or as cheap as you want it to be. Even our DIN rail equipment we find saves a lot of real estate space because the pole spaces are really small. So it's important to emphasize to the homeowner that you can make KNX very cost effective, which is why we've organized our keypads into the high, medium, and low, because you can make it quite cheap. Anything else to add, Ed?
No, good.
Okay. So I'll start on the high range. So I'm sure everyone in this meeting knows the Basalt keypads quite well. So the Basalt have three range. They've got three ranges of keypads. They've got the Sentido, which is this square. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse here, but it's this square looking one with 4 buttons. Then you've also got the Fibonacci, which is the rectangular one, and then the Chopin, which is a bit of kind of a more modern version, heritage style with the up and down. So in this presentation, we provided links. I don't know if this will work, Ed.
Perhaps not the link on Basalt, sorry. It might just be more than Sentido.
Okay. So in our follow-up that we will provide for you, there will be the different brands, and then we'll also include the tools and the links to each manufacturer's website to help you specify. I don't know why it's not working. There we go.
On there.
Sorry, it's just a bit slow for me. So there are helpful links that can help. And I find these links extremely helpful in a follow-up email to designers, architects, and homeowners, because they can go home and they feel like they are doing their research themselves rather than you just telling them everything, because after a meeting, they usually feel like their head's going to pop off of too much information. So these tools are really helpful. So there's one, it's called sentido.basalt.world. In there, what you can do is you can change the finishes of the keypads, so they can see what they would look like. Obviously online is a little bit different than seeing them in person, but it helps get them with, the design of what other interiors is going on in the home. From there, you can also have a play with different text and icons. So say I want to put lights on the top right. And you can have a play as well with the different colorings of the engravings and sizes and things. You can make it dual if you want, that sort of thing. The Sentido keypad is 2 parts, and the engraving is laser engraved. So if you do want a new cover for it, then you do have to order a whole new cover. Basalt do not prefer for you to engrave them. At the end of the day, the home should be pretty uniform. So say if the top left button is lights, in majority of the rooms, the top left button should be lights. If the bottom right is air conditioning on off, then in every single room, it should be quite uniform. They also have the same with the Fibonacci. So the Fibonacci keypad here, again, it can be dual or quad. You've got the different finishes. The engraving though here is a piece of paper essentially. And you can do, text on other sides and all that. But the goal is that then you could swap them around without having to order a whole new cover. As well, when you walk up to the keypad, it has a proximity sensor. So detect someone walking up, and then the backlit engraving will light up for that keypad.
Basalt, actually, if you ask for engraving on a Sentido, Simon, the gentleman that we deal with from Basalt, he's quite adamant that if you want engraving, you go to a Fibonacci. If you want no engraving, you go to Sentido. And it kind of makes sense for that reason. Like Sid said, you don't swap the whole cover plate if you do tend, 6 months down the line to change your mind on what you want the button to do.
Yeah. And also, like, people always freak out saying, how are we going to remember what each keypad does? Well, how do you remember what the keypads do in your home right now? So And then they get concerned about the guests. But I mean, at the end of the day, you can have touch screens and other things to control if you have the Fibonacci labeled. How much are your guests really touching your kitchen lights when they're over to visit? You know, you're probably the one doing them. And that's why you do have things such as touch screens and all that. The Chopin. So I don't know if it's Chopin or Chopin, but they've got so many different variants for this one. You can do, you know, different kind of levers. You can do the two gang, single lever, dual levers, with or without LED, and that sort of
There's
jazz.
a crazy number of combinations for this
Yeah.
switch. I think they said there's 10,000 or something inconceivable. But once you add in all the different colors for the switches and the backlight, no backlight, and there's a lot of different options.
Yeah, well, we saw them in the Basalt home. They use them a lot for blinds. So this was a lot more for blind control, and the LED feedback was quite helpful. As well, when you do go to order any Basalt keypads, you will have to use this configurator anyways, and then you can export the CSV and send it to us to order for you. But very helpful to show homeowners and designers. Another high-end keypad is the new Faraday Ore. I'm not sure if any of you attended the Faraday presentation the other day. So to go back. Sorry, everyone. So the Faraday Ore is, again, similar to the Basalt. It's more scene-based. It's 5 buttons. So the goal is to have the middle button be the on and off, and then have all 4 buttons around be different scenes. They are from raw natural metal materials. It's kind of like the Basalt. The cover plates are super, super heavy. We just got new sample kits. So if anybody would like to check them out, they're more than welcome to. It's got a backlit halo LED on them. Again, you can engrave them. So hopefully this works. It worked. They do have an engraving portal here. So again, like I said, all these links will be included in our follow-up that you can all see, but they do have an engraving portal where you can go and order them. So that's more of a high-end range.
Those are only made from brass. We posed the question, why not an aluminium range like in the Basalt to somewhat lower the cost? But that is the market they're going for now, is the ultra luxurious brass keypad. And that center button actually makes sense. On the Basalt, if you multi-touch, so you touch more than one button, any sequence of more than one button or 3 buttons or 4 buttons, you put your whole hand across it. That is essentially an all on and all off. And they are doing the same with the Faraday, but giving you a dedicated button for that function. So they feel it's a clearer way of control from an end user point of view, but horses for courses, different ways of doing the same thing. The halo is quite interesting though, because it's an RGB halo, so you can actually have it indicate certain things like flash red if the door gets left open. So it's quite a functional sort of halo backlight.
Yeah, I do. The Basalt guys have said the on off, you know, the multi-touch of tapping the keypad on off is okay to talk to designers and homeowners about. But when you start going too much into scenes, their eyes can glaze over. So I suggest the first few meetings, just explain that it's 4 buttons and you have an on off. And that's all probably I would say in that space. And also the Faraday buttons, you can make any of the buttons be whatever you want them to be. That's just their sales strategy of how they suggest to sell it. But they are taking that approach as Basalt of, you know, take it or leave it. This is our switch. This is the material we're going to use. This is the price we will be. Another high-end range is Lithos. So Lithos have a humongous range. I can find it a bit overwhelming. So please reach out to us when you have any questions. They've actually just uploaded a new brochure online. So if you go to lithos.be and go to downloads, there's their newer brochure, which I find extremely helpful to navigate through what keypads they would suggest. So Lithos let's see if that works. Just quickly before I go through. So they have all their collection here online, which you can go through and look at. And so you can see kind of all the different ranges, which I'm about to go through with you guys. But also the downloads is here. And that's their new brochure. So please reach out to us if you have any questions on the configurations. It's really confusing with Lithos. But the good thing is that the world is your oyster. They're very customized. So you have the select keypad, which is basically the button with the tactile buttons popping out. I found the the benefit of Lethos sales wise is that it's one of the only high-end keypads that has the tactile push feel. So obviously us Australians, or you Australians, are used to being able to press and have that tactile rather than capacitive, where a lot of the KNX keypads nowadays that are higher end are all mainly capacitive. So this is the point of difference with Lethos. Then the select, so that other one is a 2-gang switch. So that's actually 2 select push buttons next to each other. It's really cool that they actually don't separate the keypad in the middle. They are conjoined together for you. You've also got the Opera. So I know we discussed earlier in the meeting about rectangular keypads. So the Opera is essentially almost all of their keypads can be put in this rectangular frame. It's only up to 4 buttons again, but even their dimmer, their heritage style switches, all of that can be put into this rectangular keypad. And then also they'll fit Australian footprint or C-clip cutouts, and they'll also suit the European, depending on the install. Circum is a newer range as well. So rather than them being, super cutting edge square, they've also got circular keypads. They've also got rotary dimmers, so that can be used to control lights, blinds, whatever you kind of decide. They've also got the cockpit, which is the heritage up and down, and you can have them retract and return back into the middle. They're very flexible how you decide to configure their keypads.
Just on that point, sorry, Sid, with
Yeah.
this image over here, where normally the cockpit would be a square profile, like what is the select keypad here, but Lithos is actually part of another company called TAL or TAL, which makes some lighting products here. We don't do lighting products in general, but this is a 24-volt light. Sid's actually had some recent experience with that. And again, going to the flexibility and the range of Lithos, you can combine this with a switch next to it, and you'll see when we touch on their configurator, just how you can incorporate whatever you want into a switch panel. This might be for a hotel. They're quite involved in hotel specifications too, to provide that unique look and color.
Yeah, it's really important to know though, these cockpit ones are only 24 volt. So you will need an input behind them for whatever automation system you decide to use. Also, it's really important to note, apart from this range, the cockpit and the Esteem, which I'll show you in a second, all these other keypads can be 24 volt with LED. So what that means is you can also tie them into other automation systems such as CBus and Dynalight and have the LED working. As well, they work with Kasambi. So like the rotary dimmer, I'm getting a lot of interest in as well. We've got so many kits of Lethos. I just did a stock inventory and I think we have like over 10. So please contact us if you want to look at them. Also, one of the big selling points is that they do have matching PowerPoint socket frames. So they're called the Void. The only ones that are certified here in Australia are the Void Square. Now you have to have earthing cable with them. This is a single frame. I'll show you in the configurator how to do a double, but it's a really big selling point that the PowerPoints can match the keypads. You just need Legrand RTR inserts for them. And then as well, you can do, floor socket covers as well. As they also do have matching iPad frames too. So I did show you briefly, but I'll go into the configurator. So going back, so have the Lethos page here. Sorry, we'll go into their collection. So yeah, you can see they've got matching iPad canvases, the RP underfloor. They've got the select. The square finish is just the button flush into the keypad. It's almost the exact same. The cockpit and the Esteem are both the only ones that are 24 volt only. That will be certified here in Australia. We've got some trimless solutions, some Illume lit up ones, rotary dimmers, and then when you go into the Void, these are not certified, the Void round and the Void USB. The ones that you would do are the Void square again, and then you would put the Legrand or inserts inside of them, and you can see some of the different finishes and configurations. Again, like I said, the Lethos brochure is super helpful to navigate, and they even have on the back of the brochure like the dimensions and a lot more information, so please download it. Now on the configurator, so you go to the configurator through the Lethos portal, but again, in our follow-up email, you'll be able to see the links. So here you can choose your collection. So say majority of the keypads are going to be the Lethos standard. Let's say we want to do a horizontal frame. You could do a double frame, a triple frame, whatever you want. You can even make them round again, like I showed you with the what's it called, the circum. As well, you've got the other frames. This one, I believe, is the opera one, to make it. And so the opera, as long as you do the configuration, you just put a V if you want it to be vertical at the end, but we can help you and design that all if you have any questions. So I'll just keep going and pretend like I am configuring a keypad. So yeah, what you can do is just select the whole and then do, the select keypad. Like I showed you, you can choose your technology. So the 24 volts with LEDs work with C-Bus and Dynalite and other systems. You also have KNX and you've got Kasambi. Let's just say we're doing KNX because KNX is the best. And then you can even put, a void square next to it and then put the Legrand insert. So as I said, the void round, the void USB will not work. And you can control the lights as long as you use a keypad that is certified, so such as a 24 volt or a KNX one or something like that. And then say we're going to go next. And then you can do this, the cover plates. Sorry, I should not have gone that quick. The cover plates as well. You can have the frames.
I think scroll up there.
Yeah, sorry, hard for me to navigate on this. So you can see you can have the frame, cover plate, and button all the same color, or you can have all the buttons completely different. So I've got clients that like to have, gold surround and then a black cover plate and then the button be gold. So very, very flexible in this space. So say I want to do a brushed brass, or actually the bronze. I found the bronze antique is probably the most popular finish for lithos. And then, yeah, you can add engravings if you'd like as well, that sort of thing. Continue to the next step. And then what it will do is it'll load configuration for you. From here, you can adjust the quantities. Ed's already got some other configurations going, so he's been having a bit of a play with it, obviously. So yeah, you can do that, and you can keep adding keypads on. I find it really helpful, like again, a sales tool. You kind of want to give the homeowner the autonomy that they feel like they're in control, which is really helpful. And then you don't have to come in with any biased.
Also with the engraving on those, you can engrave onto the button with an icon or even text, although it's fairly small, or you can choose to engrave above the button, below the button, top left of the frame, bottom right. It's very flexible in their engraving.
And then the medium range. So we have another brand called EAE. They're made in Turkey. So their medium range is the Rosa. So this one, let's see how it works. And just so everyone does know, I know some people have ordered the EAE from us in the past. The Pictus range, which is like the matte black and matte white right now, is not being produced. Yeah, manufactured. Sorry, my words. It's not being manufactured at the moment. So please bear in mind, it's just the Rosa glass essentially, and then the Rosa metal. They're kind of like a little bit of a Basalt knockoff. I have some people mix and matching them with Basalt. The lead time is a bit long, so please just do take that into consideration. But yes, you can go in and I don't know why this isn't working, but you can see, you can select all the different, you can do a keypad or a switch or variation type. It feels like loading. So I'll just show you a different range, and then we'll send you the oh yeah, there you go. So now it's making the keypad for you, but you can't actually see it, but it's important to see. So you have the KNX products here, and then you can get thermostats or switches, either one. I don't know if it's the internet or EAE's website right now. So the ones I normally sell the most of is the Rosa Metal, not the Rosa Crystal. But like I said, you can have the black or white glass. Um, and then you can go in. There are engravings, so you can only do icons on the Rosa, not wording. So please put that in mind. Keep that in mind. Yes, I do have some people, in laundries and other areas, kids' rooms, putting in the EAE because they look somewhat similar to the basalt. They obviously don't have the functionality, but it's so that the finishes kind of match what's already going into the main rooms and the bedrooms and the living rooms if they want to put, the basalt and the lithos higher end and then put these in. Another one is the Faraday Alpha. So I know we already covered the Faraday Ore. The Faraday Alpha is the exact same, except it's just plastic metals. So they're not real metals. You could even split up the home half-half, like I said, to save costs and do the metals in the entertaining areas and main bedrooms, and then do the Alpha in other rooms.
The great thing about that is that they use the same bus coupler. So they've made a universal KNX bus coupler. You either clip on what is the plastic cover in the Alpha range, or you go the full hog with the all brass cover.
And also good thing to note with the Faraday as well is you can have them be different automation systems. So the cover plate is a different product to the coupler. So if you want to, have it work with a Lutron system, a Control 4 system, KNX, there's different bus couplers for different automation system that you want to use. As well, the Gira product, they have two different ranges that are a medium range. You have the push button sensor 4, which is a bit of the bigger keypad. They do have a inscription service, but we just kind of pointed you instead to these. So you can see the keypad's a lot bigger. The buttons are a lot bigger. They come in metals and glass and all different finishes. We have a lot of kits of these as well, guys. But you can see all the different color variants that they come in. So they come in, some people like more buttons. And so like we said, different horses for different courses, whatever other people want. Some people want the 8 buttons. So if they don't want the Basalt Sentido, this is another one that you can use. And you've got that, and you've also got the LED feedback on the side. Then the other mid-range Gira keypad, this one is a bit cheaper than the Sensor 4, a bit less expensive and budget friendly. Sorry, I did not mean to click that.
Not sure if I put a link there. Should be a link.
Here it is.
Oh no.
That's all right, whatever. I'll that the other one can come in a flat. That's this one here. So it can be two button, 4 button, or 6 button. Then you can inscribe them with Gira. Have an inscription service, and then you can put text in the middle, and then put like blinds, and then on off, or however you decide to do it. I do a lot of these in the mid range. The Gira push button sensor 4 system 55. You can make them flat or protrude out, and they're good like matte white. They're just a good happy medium for people when they do want that granular control and to still see inscriptions and writing. Another medium range is the MDT. So this one we find is really helpful I use them a lot in commercial buildings, but I have also used them at homes in the past. So the middle is actually a program. You can program it. So it's an LED. It's like a square version of the EDLT, I find. And you've got the buttons that you can select on there. So that one is a tactile push button, but they do also have a glass version, which is also capacitive. So they have different keypads depending on what you want. And they also have, ones with temperature sensors in them, which you can specify in black matte, that sort of thing.
So there's the glass capacitor.
Sorry, that's the glass one. Now I skipped ahead. I got excited. So yeah, so you've got the plastic one, which you have the tactile buttons, and then you have the glass one, which is the capacitive button.
Yeah. The screens are actually the same. That's just demonstrating what is the sort of the lighter screen versus the high contrast or the black background. You can choose either option for the glass or the plastic, and they've just come out with those 2 black finishes as of March. I think they're going into production now in July. You can carry on, Sid, if you want.
I'll let you go.
the Zennio flat keypad that replaces what was their TMD range. So they now have a flat, which is that square Euro style. That's just trying to show it in situ there. And obviously with the Zennio flat being the glass touch, you can put whatever graphic you want behind it. So in their configurator, you can actually put an image onto the button as well as then choose the icon of the physical touch surface. But again, it's for that hotel or very unique installation where it needs to match even the wallpaper. So here you can see the switch there is somewhat invisible to the wallpaper. That must have been a lot of planning or trial and error to get it to match up perfectly there. But that's essentially what you can do. You do get it in a standard black, white, and silver. So the flat XL is your rectangular, either vertical or horizontal, or landscape or portrait. And then your flat is your square one. Going into the low end of the range now with what we have on offer, again, EAE from Turkey. They've got the Aria, so plastic finish keypads. That comes as a single button. It's quite useful if a person just wants a single button, or in commercial. We use these in a fair few commercial projects. You've got a single button, or one fold being two button, or then two fold being four button. You can just see it poking out the side there. Threefold or fourfold, and then you start getting your larger sizes. So there's quite a lot in that range. You get it with LED feedback or without. Most of the times we set it with the LED feedback. That's part of the charm of KNX, is getting all the feedback to the keypad. It comes in a pearl white anthracite, I think, in a Mustang Grey. We also have an additional color called a pure white, which is more sort of a brighter white color, but it's quite standardized in terms of the color range that you can get in the EAE Oreo. We included this one, the Elsner. Elsner is a great partner, or great KNX partner. They make some very, very unique products. Their ceiling sensors are some of the best you can get. But they released this range of keypads recently, and we were shown it at the Light and Build Expo. And what makes it quite unique, I feel, is that you can surface mount it. So you get two options to connect it to KNX, either through the standard Wago connector, the black and red there. But if that isn't to your liking and you want to, that's for flush mounting. But if you want to use the surface mount, there's actually a screw down terminal here that you can wire into KNX so that it sits perfectly flush. The cable doesn't push the keypad from the wall. So that's quite unique, and that's a glass capacitive touch, either as a single, a double, or a four button. Again, the lower end side of things with HDL, obviously a KNX brand from China. This is their tile series. Both a thermostat is available and a standard push button, where you've got RGB backlit engraving. That's quite useful. This is demonstrating what is a 8 button configuration, or you can have it a 4 or a 2 button keypad. The Theben Ion, we've done many of these for many years. It's a very practical range. Again, for that low cost residential, we use quite a few of these in the SDA developments for disability. It's got a good button size. This is actually not a button. It's a placeholder. You can put a label there if you need a high visibility label, or you just want to leave it to blend in with the keypad. They recently released a silver and a black version, which is why we're showing the black here. So this is the Ion 104, which is 4 buttons. And then you get the Ion 102, which would just be 2 button, one top, one bottom. And then you get the Ion 108, which gives you multi-function. So you can choose blinds, lights. You've got a couple different functions you can scroll through with buttons up and down. The Tekla XL, this is the plastic version of what is the glass touch in the flat range. The Tekla gets a square. This was a recent addition. So it's now a frameless square keypad. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sid, it goes up to 6 buttons or 8 buttons, if you know from memory.
The square is only up to 4, I'm pretty sure.
Is it up to 4? Okay.
I don't remember actually, but I know that the rectangle looks up to way more.
Yeah, the rectangular goes up to 10 buttons, which is somewhat overwhelming for most people. It either goes 4, 6, 8, or 10 buttons. And again, you can choose it to have engraving without engraving. Both of these have the engraving, the icons, and there's a whole variety of icons which you can choose from on their engraving website. But generally, it'll come with like a square frame around the button. They have a light tapping, like a click noise, which you can change. There's 2 or 3 to choose from, or you can have that sound emit when a message comes across KNX. If you left the door open, the keypad can go tick, tick, tick. So it's got that feature to know that you touched it. Also, a bit like the flat keypad early on, it's got proximity and light sensor, so the backlight can stay dim in a nighttime scene, or can be brighter during the day, and obviously proximity, as you walk up to it, the backlight lights up. The Tekla XL, the larger one, also can accommodate a C-clip. Obviously, that covers more of the wall. The back plate behind it has the screw holes to accommodate C-clip. HDL master and slave mechs, based on the 30 series clipsal range. You can put these into an S2000 wall plate or something in that range, but it's native KNX. Gives you a fair bit of functionality, more so than what you would get from a slave mech going into a binary input module. You got a multicolor LED there. This is demonstrating what is a master, so native KNX connection there, and what is a slave. The slave plugs into the master, the bus connectors on the side there, but you can plug 3 slaves into a master, so 4 buttons essentially of one master, or if you need 6 buttons, you would need 2 masters and 4 slaves. And lastly, we have our mech connect board. So that has the C-bus mech connector in it, which this board, which we manufacture to make it a lot easier. There's less handling of bare wire cables. That just plugs straight into what is a Theben binary input module, a TA8 in this instance. So it provides both the input from the button as well as can power the LED on the C-bus slave mech. That's why it's a maximum of 4. So the TA8 can accommodate 8 inputs or 4 inputs and 4 return LED feedbacks. Touching on our website. So a lot of people get to our website and question what they're looking at. There's a lot to digest on our website. So how do we navigate the Ivory Egg website? Unfortunately, this image doesn't enlarge, but we'll send some more details in our follow-up email. If you were to go to our shop section, right down here below lighting, you'll see it says switches by range. If you expand that menu, it shows our primary brands. We're adding to this every time, or every time we get a new range or a new brand, we add to this. And we've put into there, as Sydney explained, a lot of these keypads, like these Basalte Sentidos, get made up of multiple parts. And the last thing we want you to do is question what part is required to make the system work. So if you go to switches by range and you see there it's a Basalte keypad, whatever color in KNX, then it'll show you ultimately what is the 2 parts. So if I click on that image there, it shows me what is the 2 parts to make up that switch. Where you start getting into the Gira series and the push sensor 4 or push sensor 4 system 55, then you might need 3 or 4 parts, depending if you want it to be flat or have the buttons to gap slightly as they do by default. You would need 4 parts. What do you have to add from our website, Sid?
Yeah, I just think it's important to go through and look through the switches by range section, really. It's just a lot easier to navigate. I have people always calling me like, what do I need with this and this? And it's all organized there for you. We've put it in bundles. So please go through and look at the different brands. I mean, look at when we send you the PDF, which will be helpful for you to navigate, but then to actually know what parts go with what and what functionality you get within the keypads, I probably would navigate through there. So we've tried to add sections. So say with the lethal section, it's organized by the different ranges in there. So you'll be able to see the void, which would be the socket outlet. So we've tried to add a lot of functionality in there, so it's a lot easier for you to figure out what keypads to select. If you don't know what keypads you need to make the whole complete switch, please reach out to us and we're happy to help as well.